When we think about how best to impart of our knowledge to the future generations, we often reflect on how we were taught and we try to replicate the same teaching methods we learned in. A lot of people think it worked for us, it will work for the future generations. Right? Wrong. The only difference now is that in the past, where access to great ideas and knowledge was limited and reserved for the elite few, is now readily available for global consumption. We knowledge about anything. There is no longer a need for teaching the foundational knowledge in any discipline. Why? Because everything is available on the internet, both the good and the bad. In other words, any determined person can be self-taught about virtually any subject they are interested in. Is that good or bad? In some ways, it's not just good, but it's amazing that we can continually advance and improve our personal knowledge of anything we are interested in, without the need to spend money on getting certified, without having to move and relocate to attend a particular school program that is only offered in a particular place and time. It seems those days are gone. That time is finished. What does that mean for our jobs in higher education and our careers as university professors? Has our need for teaching our professional knowledge diminished? Are our faculty jobs at stake? Are we in the process of becoming obsolete? What are our roles as faculty in this ever-changing and ever-evolving society where technology is replacing human thought and action every day? These are important questions to think about, to reflect on, as we embark on our individual and collective journeys into the future of higher education and the role the learning sciences play. To begin with, let's start with our current knowledge of teaching and learning by reflecting on how we each were taught. We were probably taught some basic concepts in subjects such as science, math, and language learning. And as we progress through each grade, the expectation of learning the knowledge in each of these subject matters deepened and often. We were expected to demonstrate our knowledge acquisition in weekly quizzes, end of unit tests, and final exams. Do you recall doing this as a learner? We sure do. The problem with this educational pedagogy was that it is rooted in the knowledge telling paradigm. In the knowledge-telling paradigm, we are told what we need to know, what is needed for us to be competent in the subject, and what is needed for us to prove that we deserve the qualification we are working towards, in other words, the diploma or degree. This piece of paper then allows us to secure a job and earn a living in the profession we were trained. In the past, this piece of paper also accorded us respect and dignity from society. The problem with this system is that it is based on external rewards and recognition. It is a highly outward-facing system of elitism. If we have the piece of paper, we are regarded as learned. If we regard it as learned, then theoretically speaking, we can get a desirable job at our choice of learning. How does one attain the piece of paper then, if that is the only path to securing a respectable profession and career? Some who feel extremely challenged by the system resort to cheating and bribery to pass exams and get their degrees. Others genuinely care to advance their knowledge, contribute to society, and deserve their designations. However, all who get this piece of paper, whether through ethical or unethical means, get the same respectful and dignified treatment from society. This is where the problem lies. How do we know that the piece of paper and/or the designation they have been rewarded actually demonstrates competence in the graduate? The answer is simple. We don't. The knowledge-telling paradigm we commonly teach in does nothing to help the learner to become an independent critical thinker in a knowledge society. If we, as educational leaders, are making all the decisions for our learners, how are we teaching them to be critical thinkers and problem solvers for the problems they will encounter in their future societies? If we as teachers are deciding what knowledge is important for our learners and what is required professional knowledge for them to acquire in order for them to attain their certificates, how are we facilitating the emergence and continual growth of new knowledge? In our professions in the future, the answer is simple: we are not. So the question herein lies in, how do we as faculty, as educators, help our learners to develop critical thinking skills required to help them make independent and ethical decisions for the future of our planet? How do we teach them to have a social conscience, to care about the people in their environment, the needs of their community, the progress of their society and the world? How do we help them become a better version of themselves so they understand and recognize that teaching and learning has a higher purpose, a moral purpose, and that their mission in life to serve this higher purpose and fulfill their mission? Higher education is not just for one's own advancement, for one's own a selfish purpose, or for individual profit or self-benefit. It is to advance the state of knowledge in society so the human civilization can progress through scientific advancements and have a higher quality of life. Critical thinking skills has long been explored and examined. How do we teach critical thinking effectively to our learners? Is it something they just acquire themselves automatically through life experience? Whose responsibility is it to teach learners critical thinking? What is critical thinking? Why is critical thinking so important, and possibly more important to impart to our learners than the foundational knowledge itself? These questions all come back to the idea of knowledge telling. Knowledge telling is essentially the process by which the teacher-educator tells and advises learners what to think, what knowledge is important in our profession's subject, what we need to do to understand the professional knowledge, subject matter, and how to proceed to think about any given problem in our subject discipline. In this paradigm, the teacher is essentially deciding every thought process in the instructional process. Teachers traditionally have made all instructional decisions. We routinely design the learning environment, design the projects and learning activities. We continually monitor for understanding and evaluate our learners on the learning outcomes we set for them. In the knowledge-telling paradigm, we, as teachers, are making all the executive decisions on the learning processes involved and are effectively denying the learners the right and the opportunities to think critically for themselves, reflect, examine, and decide what is important to them, review, and decide how and what educational resources they chose to use to read and conduct research about problem solve, how to deepen their inquiry and their understanding of the ideas that interest them, and invent improved solutions for emerging problems we face in our professions and in our world. However, when we as learners are given the choice of freely exploring our interests, and we are given unlimited freedom to creatively explore ideas that have meaning and relevance to us, then I would propose there is a better chance of producing scientific discoveries and innovation. The concept of a free society is not a new idea. Plato and many other philosophers and scientists from the past have explored the idea of a free society. Yet, through the ages and times, somehow we as a human society revert back to our primitive, narrow-minded
thinking.
It is easier to follow the herd than to be a leader. In reflecting about your own teaching in higher education, do you lean towards being a knowledge teller or a knowledge builder? Why do you feel this way? Give examples of how your professional knowledge has been taught the knowledge-telling way, why you think this might need to change in a remote teaching and learning environment, and how you think this method can be improved in an online remote teaching and learning environment. We invite you to think through these philosophical concepts presented as you embark on your own personal and professional journey into the field of remote teaching and learning at the University of Central Asia.